Hello and welcome to Indiepocalypse Radio, your source for all things related to, Indiepocalypse, the thing that it is. I'm Andrew. I'm your host, the resident top dog here at Indiepocalypse. I think that's what I entitled myself, the title I give myself, because what does chief executive officer even mean? It doesn't mean anything. You don't actually need to call yourself that. You can call yourself anything if you want. It's all made up. Words are all made up. We just slowly agree what they mean, for the most part. But we don't even all use the same ones every day. It's a crazy thing. But speaking of things, I'm here with guests who have made things, and the things they made, would you believe it? They're video games, as I want to include on this. But I've been thinking a lot about. I felt no envy. I felt 0% envy when GDC was going on and all that. But I earlier this week I was considering. I was Googling. I was looking at train tickets. It was like, what would it take me to get to SPX? And then I decided not to go to SPX, but I am envious of not being there, despite it being something I would never table at. But anyway, but to get back to independent creators, which is kind of the lifeblood of the stuff that I love. We've got two of them here today, and the first one, who you've heard the static of perhaps their radio here and there to this point, who you may know from Indiepocalypse. I closed the thing, and I am not. Oh no, there it is. I'm not as good as I used to be at knowing exactly which game is in exactly which issue. Now that there are 33 of them in my mind, there's 32 of them released. But from issue 21 with The Tale of the ADHD Dinosaur, it's Julian Poton. Julian, how are you doing today?
Hello, I'm good. How are you?
I am doing great. I'm all wrapped up. I'm high on my SEO victories. Just kind of doing things,
I can tell you're in philosophical mood.
Yeah, that's my my default state.
Okay. So you said I was a independent video game creator.
At least once.
At least, yeah, just the once, really. I mean, I do like game dev. It's it's something I'm passionate about, but it's not like I don't try to make money out of video games or anything.
No, it's a hard thing, really, to make money out of video games. I was talking to a small press, like a literature and poetry publisher, the other day, and I realized it kind of put into perspective the idea of someone in an upcoming issue. I was like, why would you want to be in this thing? Because you've already published stuff that is I've heard of it in ways. Other people seem to like it, but then you forget because game dev is so focused on this kind of feast or famine kind of model that anyone who, it's easy to get into the mindset of believing anyone who has put out a game that someone besides the people who have worked on it have talked about, that they must be successful or something. But quite not the case.
Not the case, yeah.
Yeah, that's why I'm like, oh no, that makes sense that nobody gets rich off of anthologies, but you do an anthology on the side, And that's it's supplementary income. But speaking of supplementary income and anthologies, how did you hear about Indiepocalypse?
Well, I first learned about it when I created an account on itch.io, in order to share this project I had in mind. Because it's the first time I actually finish a project of a game dev. It's mostly it's my version of scribbling drawings on the lines of the sides of the paper. So that's what I do. Just make games.
I encourage that.
I wanted to share this, and then I saw in the game jam category your game jam for the Indiepocalypse, and I thought, Oh, that's interesting. It's themeless entry. I think I might try and line up my development with this thing, and that's how I discovered it, and that's how I entered this whole universe.
Oh, perfect. It's the organic discovery model, which it seems how most people come across is just on the jam pages. It's my intention. It's why I wrote. It's why I added in parentheses paying anthology, because people will be like, oh, money. I enjoy money.
It's quite a big surprise for me to actually earn any amount of money from this.
Yeah. I would say the average developer has earned somewhere between $40 to $60, which is not a lot of money, but
it is money.
Yeah, that's right. If you save that up over the course of the 2 years, you could buy one AAA video game.
Exactly.
So it's something, and I feel like I'm hoping it'll become more something as it goes on. But speaking of something, you also made something. The one thing that you said you so far.
Yeah, I made it. Like the one thing that I actually had created an end for. There's a lot of. It was a very personal project of mine.
Yeah.
And I really wanted to sort of get it out there as a sort of cathartic experiment, because I had all these ideas and like things I wanted to express, but could only express them through gameplay and get people to play it. And so I did it and shared it online and was quite overwhelmed by how well it was received. This is, outside of my job, the most popular thing I have ever made ever.
Yeah. Oh wow. Yeah, I did not. There was not as many. I don't think there were as many comments the last time, like when it was originally submitted.
I shared it.
Yeah.
On itch.io, like that's where I hosted it, and then I did the game jam. So that's when I started getting comments, and they were positive. And so I posted it on Reddit as a sort of you should post this on Reddit. I'm like, oh, okay, and I did that on r/ADHD programmers, I think. And they all thought it was awesome, and that's how it started. And then you gave me money.
Yeah, that's the one tricky thing about free games that people love. They don't always hit that donate button,
Yeah, but like I said, that was never.
Yes.
It could have been any amount. I would have been happy. Just the idea that my ideas resonated with many people. Not even without even thinking of the exact number, just having a whole load of comments in my inbox saying, "This is a good game. I recognize myself in this," or "This is clever," and that was like the best month of my life was during that Reddit post, and the Indiepocalypse having all this praise for something that I had created myself, and it was like the first time I ever shared something outside of my friend and family circle.
Right.
And so this game called The Tale of the ADHD Dinosaur, it's basically it's a bit of an autobiography of sorts. Because I had been very recently diagnosed with ADHD at the time, so now it's been like 10 months or something, over 10 months. And so here in France, where I live, it's not as big as a thing as in like the States. People don't really know about it. I mean, I had heard of it, and for me, it was like something kids get, and then they grow out of it. And as it turns out, like the doctors were explaining what it meant to be ADHD, and they're like, "Oh my god, everything makes so much sense." And I had all this frustration for 30 years of living with this thing that could have been explained, and all kinds of different emotions, which is why I needed to express those ideas. And as I said before, video game creation is it's my art. It's my go-to art form, video games. And I thought, I'm going to make a video game from start to finish. I'm going to pick all of because I had loads of ideas. I'm going to pick all of as many ideas as I can to get it to fit in the 1 week. I think it was actually 10 days. In the 10 days that coincidentally my kids were out of the house, my wife was out of the house, it was just me, And so everything lined up, and then there was the game jam. I'm like, okay, I'm taking this opportunity. I'm going to do this little self project, share it with my friends and family, and that's how it started. And so I made my little ADHD themed game, and was very happy with how everything turned out.
Yes, it
My
makes
story.
no when you say, I mean, the goal in a lot of ways of I recently described trying to desperately explain to someone at a market when they said, "I'm sorry, I don't play video games," and trying to convince them to stay and look at this thing I had. I told them that Indiepocalypse is more like art that happens to be in the form of a video game, and what you said, that idea of you're an artist and your medium just happens to be video games, is something that I think is emerging a bit more, where it's like,
Yeah, I mean, for some people, that's still not a thing. Like the image they have of video games is mobile gaming,
right,
where it's like a science of getting people to pay. It's not an
yeah,
art, and but I'm glad that some people still take the time to spread the message that games are art.
yeah, and it is. I think your game is deceptively good at, because it looks like a video game. It has a very a video game appearance at first, and then you realize that it's like the way you
Yeah,
express your ideas can only be expressed through a video game.
that's true. It's not an actual video game. It's more like a thing you play.
Yes, right.
I've always liked it when video games like throw the players out for a loop, or like so like all of a sudden the video game breaks the fourth wall in some mysterious way, and things that really fuck with the player. Basically,
Yeah,
I love those. So I could name Doki Doki Panic for one, the Stanley Parable. There's the other game with the cards. Gosh, Inscription.
yeah,
Those sorts of games, I absolutely love it when games do that. And even before wanting to make this ADHD game, I've always wanted to try and do that, but I never had like a good subject. I can't just say, "Oh, you're a guy and the game's not working," and it makes no sense. This actually fits so well in that idea. So like I said, it was planets were aligning, all of these things happening
right.
together, and that's I can't remember where I was getting at with this.
No, that's fine. I'm similar in that I find myself down these paths, and then I sometimes find myself at the end of the path. I'm like, how did I get here? This is this is not my beautiful segue. This is what's going on. But that is yeah. So the game in particular is very much like it can't be expressed in a way that is not a video game, like this story or this this tale.
I mean, like I was saying, it was difficult for people around me to understand what I was going on about when I told
Yeah,
them about ADHD, and so like the reflex here would be to sort of get them to walk in my shoes for a mile, and the only way you can actually do that is to sort of imitate the feelings of frustrations you would get. So how could I make them?
right.
How can I simulate that exact frustration that I have had over and over again by making them play a video game? And so I almost like scientifically thought, what is the most annoying thing I can get them to face
Right.
at each moment of the game. So each step of the game is basically you do a thing, you do it a second time, and then the third time it won't work because of X.
Right.
And the most important part of this game was that nothing in the game was going to be helpful towards you. Every single time the game was like, nope, you can't do that. It had to be framed as if it was the player's fault.
Yes. Right.
So it was the basis of my design. Is everything that's going wrong is the player's fault, but of course it isn't. It's my fault as the developer.
Yeah. Yeah. But it's one of those things where people are so accustomed to in the power of the medium is that you can inhabit like more closely a different person's experience, you know. But usually that experience is being a really cool guy, you know.
Yeah. The power fantasy.
Right. You forget that you can also be someone who kind of has trouble keeping track of things, or has, you know, gets overwhelmed and cluttered on without their intent. And
Exactly. So that's what I was trying to impose on the player.
yeah, no, and it works very well through like the language of video games.
That's the thing. Yeah, I didn't want to like add a tutorial and press left to go left, press space to press space, because the game was really aimed at people who knew how to play a game, so they would have expectations and they would know at least the basic language of video games,
Yeah.
because that was important, because it was by playing a game and by having these expectations that I could throw them out the window.
Yeah,
If-
because like I mean and I think we're approaching like more rapidly a time where just kind of the general population sort of, even if they don't know the breadth of what video games are, they sort of like grew up with video games and like understand the language of them and
Yeah.
how
So
controllers work.
Yeah, there's a certain vocabulary in games. Press space to jump, stuff like that.
Yeah, and then it's like people are like we're approaching probably within like maybe even 10 or 20 years, like that will just be like in the same way we all sort of know how to watch a movie and read a book for the most part.
Like when you read a book, you have to start from left to right. Well, I mean,
Right, unless it's one of those those backwards
language.
comics that yells at you and tells you to, but it is very good at yelling at you and telling you you're on the wrong page.
it's true. Which is good, because the first time I picked one of those up, I needed that reminder.
Yes, no, and I think you've got a bit more than we do, but I get envious sometimes. But anyway, speaking of games, so you mentioned some games that you have played, games that are breaking the fourth wall, or like, but what is a game that you tend to go to? Would you say like, or like, do you have a game style niche that you kind of like find yourself gravitating towards?
Well, I do play a lot of different games, and I don't have like a game that I always go back to.
Right, or like a genre where you're like,
There are genres that I enjoy more than others.
yeah,
Naturally, I mean, I suck at any strategic game. I've always hated it when in, like, for example, a Total War game, there's a button where you can either play a battle or get the AI to play it for you, sort of quick battle.
right.
Because whenever I click quick battle, invariably it did better than when I tried to do it myself.
Right.
But
Those games involve a lot of tiny little moving pieces.
I do like all problem-solving games and platformers. Those are my big two.
Yeah.
And then I'll try anything. Farming games, even city building games, simulator games. I'm down for whatever.
Yeah. Right.
But it depends on the trends of the day.
Right. What is everybody making today, tomorrow?
Yeah. It's like at the moment it seems that farming games or just Zen games, they're being very popular these days, and then more and more of them coming out.
Yeah, I feel like you see a bunch of like waves of like
Genres,
Stardew Valley becomes popular, and then you see that's why a bunch of farming simulators hit 3 to 5 years later.
Yeah.
Because everybody's like, oh wow, I want to make mine of that.
Big fan of that one.
Yeah, and they have to. Are they even remaking that first Did I say I saw? I do not follow video game news, as it were.
Mm-hmm.
But I thought they were remaking the new Harvest Moon even.
Was it a remake? Because they're different Harvest Moons.
I don't know. I thought I'm thinking of that SNES one that I would sit around and play.
I played that one. I liked it back in the day.
And I would just like go to a friend's house and be like, "Hey, let me just sit around on your floor and just play Harvest Moon." While people do other things, just as like a background noise.
Yeah, well, some games they sort of really put you in a zen mood, and then you can just do something else at the same time.
Yeah, it's the GameCube. I'd never
I know.
played the GameCube one.
The GameCube Harvest Moon?
Yeah, no. Or Story of Seasons, technically.
I'm pretty sure I've played it.
But that was like I didn't play a lot on the GameCube. There wasn't, I've been playing. I've been getting back into. This isn't a show where I'm just gonna sit around and talk about the stuff I've been playing, because they make things fat. Oh, I was looking for a GIF and I forgot I named my folder OBS is a baby for when I make GIFs that are too strong for OBS to handle. Oh, it's this one too. See, I like my GIFs to be much like you record a good movie on film, so that it is super high resolution there, so that you can always just kind of keep up-resing it forever. I like to make big, huge GIFs, so that I can just, like, they never go bad. But OBS lately has been sad about my GIF thing. So
it's not the most efficient format.
Yeah, so I need to go here. Yeah, it's killing me here. This is all to say that I was trying to. Julian, if you believe it or not, we've already hit our 20 minutes. Like I said, it comes very quickly. Like this, like it comes like in and out like nothing. Here we go. Here we go. Got one. So glad to have you on the show. I hope you'll stick around for our continued on guest segment. This is a radio show after all. You're not forced out the door once your segment is over.
Boy, no problem. See you in a moment.
Yeah, so I will be back. We will be back with our very next guest. And until then, let me find my window. I will see you all on the other half of approximately 1 minute and 37 seconds.
Okay, well, have a good chat. See you later. I'll be right here playing a video game.
Oh, perfect. That's a perfect thing to do. Hello and welcome back to Indiepocalypse Radio. That was Husker Du with Beyond the Threshold. One of the theme nights I want to do eventually is I want to do songs about other songs and or other bands. And I was thinking of that because of the Replacements classic, Something to Do. Could you believe it? Could you believe that Newberry Comics had the full version of Sorry Ma for it was like $80 for that album, and that's like listen. I love the Replacements, and I have a deep affection for that very punk early album. Sorry Ma, forgot to take out the trash, but $80 is a lot for an album. It's a lot of money. We're here back at Indiepocalypse Radio. You just heard our guest Julian Thomas here. Now we've got a next guest coming up, who you may know from issue 23 of Indiepocalypse, with monument. Did I write that right? I think I did. Is this one of those?
Yeah.
Monumentum. It's one of those things where I had just never looked at it and never realized what that word was. I did that with conurbation for a long time too. Is actually conurbation. But anyway,
one thing I think we're really good at is making titles that are very difficult to look up.
No, that's actually very good. That's the church's secret, or the Javerch's secret. That is, it makes you better at SEO. If people can remember your weird name, that is. But that person who you just heard talking just a second ago was the creator of that game I just realized the title for. It's Magic Phil. Magic Phil, how you doing today?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing great. Right off the bat, the people gotta know. How'd you hear about Indiepocalypse?
I saw it somewhere on Itch. I don't remember exactly where. If it was on, might have been the front page.
Okay, that's a good place to have it. It's there sometimes, or it was at least. So tell me a little bit about and the listening audience, that all of us here, about Momentous Monumentum.
It's definitely a game.
Yes.
It started off as a small jam game I made for the GMTK Game Jam in 2020.
Yeah, very surprised it was not for the GBTK Game Jam in a way. Have you ever seen that
So
one before?
my
Yeah.
my big thought was, what if I like took a platformer and just made it awful?
Yes.
And I succeeded.
Yeah, people really ought to think that way more often with video games, I think. This they're too worried about making good video games, and I think it's holding people back.
Yeah, I do enjoy I don't want to say a bad game because, like,
Right.
you know, but an unpolished game.
Right, because it's. I would never call your game bad. It's just because it does exactly what it sets out to do. You know.
I would call it bad, but it does do that.
Right. Yes. No. I have different perspectives on bad and good, and what is good art, what is bad art. And I kind of am drawn to things that stick out to me. That feel of themselves. Which Momentous Monumentum definitely is.
It definitely has a very strong feel.
Yeah, it is. And that feels forwards. So did you ever, in the process of design, hit a point and think, well, that's too fast. Maybe I should slow it down a little.
Constantly. Yeah, I think basically the whole level design process was me finding ways to slow down this insanely fast gameplay I've made.
Right. Just trying to find those little like divots or whatever in the level, or the right place to just calm it down for like just a second.
Yeah.
And I mean, if you think about it, if it finds the right audience, it's almost like it could find its way. It's like, there is the genre of massacre,
Mm-hmm.
and I think people have asked a lot of questions in the massacre genre. How many spikes should I punish this person for walking forward? But how often, too fast is an unanswered massacre question in a way.
Yeah, I think most games that run into that question aren't trying to.
Yeah, right. They look at it and go, "Oh, right, it is too fast." But it is.
Yeah, one of the things I noticed the other day, I was looking back through the code for the exact formula, because it's like, it's not just straight like reverse your speed when you hit a wall. It's much more complicated than that. So it actually it slows you down if you're going fast enough to bounce off a wall, but if you're not going very fast, it will speed you up. So it kind of reins you into like a nice speed where it is definitely still too fast, but not like unmanageably too fast.
Right. Because when I found it playing it, there's a sweet spot that you get used to. Kind of like when driving a car, you would think 80 miles an hour, that's far too fast. But then when you do it long enough, you're like, oh, no, that's just how fast a car goes. It doesn't feel fast at all anymore. And it's just like a situation where I've definitely, like, if you take yourself out of it, you suddenly lose control. But if you can kind of mentally lock your brain into how it's working, then it's smooth sailing. And it's as smooth as you can sail in a hurricane with a piece of wood.
Yeah.
And I suppose a piece of paper, since you are sailing and you require some sort of sail. But anyway, do you have so is this platformer a preferred genre, or is this a just a what Magic Pillow, if you were to play a video game, what kind of video game would you want to play?
I am a big fan of platformers. I do play a lot of those. I also really like turn-based combat.
Yeah.
So I haven't delved into making anything turn-based yet, but it's definitely something on my bucket list.
Yeah, and would you make that sort of au naturel, or would you lean towards a one of those, like like an RPG maker?
I don't know. There's pros and cons to each.
Yeah.
Like with something like RPG Maker, definitely a lot of the systems are there, but that's kind of a double-edged sword, because if I wanted to do something really wacky with like, the core gameplay, it's a lot harder to like shake that up.
Right, especially like how familiar are you with Ruby?
Not.
Yeah. I wonder how many RPG Maker developers are familiar with Ruby. I don't know how much use that gets, but yeah. So it is very much a what does this system use, and so what do you work in primarily? Do you have a go-to engine?
I think the one I've used the most in the past has definitely been Game Maker Studio. The one I'm using right now is specifically Game Maker Studio 2.
Yeah.
Just because it's really easy to prototype in that.
Yes. Yeah. No, that is my engine of choice as well. And I found it's especially because it's very easy to just kind of like import your old code right away.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Although recently I've been thinking of picking up Godot.
Yeah.
Or I think it's pronounced Godot. I have no idea.
Yes, Godot, like the fellow you wait for, I believe. Yeah, that is. I think the only weird thing I've heard about that is just very high, console publishing fees. But that is also a very specific sort of thing to worry about,
Yeah.
That, who knows, maybe by the time you feel comfortable with Godot fully, it's like that's not even a thing. Like, who would publish to a console, What a silly thing. PCs are free.
Yeah, that's another big upside of Godot, is that it's, open source. So you don't have to worry about like them switching to a subscription model or anything.
Yes, right. You don't have to be like, you don't have to like wipe your brow and be like, good thing I got grandfathered into just owning this thing.
Yeah.
That's the tricky thing about recommending. I used to be like, Game Maker is it's easy. It's good to, if you're gonna make 2D, it's good to use. But now it's like, now it's got a subscription model. It's kind of a little harder to to just try it. But yeah, no, Godot, and I think the good thing about open software is that if they ever try to sell it to somebody, someone can just make a branch of it that's still open source, and then you don't have to worry about that anymore, unless they've got some copyrights snuck around somewhere,
Mm-hmm.
that they would prevent it. But I use it for the launcher. Very minimally use Godot for the launcher, and it works pretty well enough. It seems easy enough to look at for me. For my very specific tiny edge case scenario. because I think the difficulty, at least early on for me, because I looked at Unity, because people liked Unity, but its 2D was very bad, and it was like I was never going to work in 3D, and trying to kind of work its 2D into, it just seemed a little like cumbersome, you know?
Yeah, I've worked in Unity a bit, both for some personal project and some for college, and I just never really vibed with it.
Right. You don't have a desire to have a thriving career in weapons development or
Particularly.
whatever other fun thing they're getting into lately. As the end result of any publicly traded corporation.
Well, you win some, you lose some.
Yes, yeah. That's you can't pick. You can't predict the path of every person and every company and every product you'll ever use. I hadn't even heard of Figma before, and now people are upset that it is purchased by Adobe. But whatever. Anyway, so. Video games. So what is the? So tell me as someone as like an outsider to this whole. I'm familiar with the GMTK insofar as I get plenty of games that whenever I start seeing a lot of games around us that feel very similar, I know it is, or not. They don't feel similar, but they have like a. Why are all these games about
Theme.
what? Sorry. Yeah. Why
Similar
are these?
theme.
Yeah. Why are these games about dice all of a sudden?
Mhm.
And then I learned, oh, it must be Game Maker's Toolkit. So is that like your go-to sort of yearly, or annual sort of game jam?
Yeah, that's That's really the only one I do consistently. I did a single Ludum Dare, but yeah, GMTK is the one jam that I pretty much always do, for better or for worse.
Right. And that's the beauty of game jams is it's. I feel like they're getting like increasingly commercial in a way, but the beauty about them is they can be for worse. You can just make something bad in 48 hours and be like, oh well, it was just a weekend.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I can almost guarantee everyone has wasted a weekend on much worse things. Much more trivial. What would you say is your most trivially spent weekend? That would be a better.
That's a tough one.
Among a sea of trivialities.
Yeah, I have probably a fair amount of weekends where I just like did nothing.
Yeah.
Probably be up there.
Face up or face down? Which direction were you doing nothing? Yeah, there's but it is a that's almost like I feel bad to disparage it as trivial. It's good to kind of have a day where you don't actually need to do anything,
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, no, it's great to do nothing when you like are trying to do nothing.
Yeah.
It feels really bad to do nothing when you're trying to do something, though.
Yes, right. But the leisure is the ultimate pleasure of life. Is the comfort of leisure. It's to not have to do anything. Right. It's more like when you're like, oh, I need to get this game done, but why am I spending? How did one game of Magic turn to 6 games of Magic? I need to get work done. Surely I will just win one game one of these times. that's not true. I won plenty of games. I'm good at video games. I say to the internet to prove something to nobody. But now let me look at this this process. So now you worked both. Now is Momentous Monumentum, and now I'm saying it right for the first time in how many? God, almost a year. So much happens. That was a solo project, right?
Yeah.
But then your most recent one was like a rather large group project. How do you tend to? No, it wasn't. You had one on here. What was I doing? I was looking at your games. There was one in here that had like.
The two most recent ones were both group projects. Also made for the GMTK Jam of different years.
Right. Okay, one of them just had all the submitted names on it, and the other one didn't. Okay, that's why. So, is there a personal preference, or are they just different experiences when it comes to working on a team versus working solo?
Yeah, there's upsides and downsides. I'll say it's a lot easier to have a unified project vision when you're the only one working on it. But also a lot more work to do.
Right.
So, yeah, I think the most recent Jam game I did, I was with 3 other people who were they were all 3 of my roommates in college. We had somehow gone the full 4 years without making any games together, so we really wanted, try working together.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the weird thing about kind of like onlineness is that you can forget that you can just kind of jam with the people around you to make games.
Mm-hmm.
And that like it's kind of like because there's less of a local scene, there's not. I mean, there are meetups around the world. I'm working on highlighting such things, but they feel less obvious than local concerts and that sort of thing of developers meeting up, and because everyone is usually working on like forever long projects. Everyone makes their 3-year long odyssey that turns into a 7-year long odyssey that turns into a 9-year long odyssey that turns into a game that never comes out, or comes out enough to get a little bit of attention, but then everybody disappears because you can't sustain another 9-year project.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I definitely have my own project that's always just been at the back of my mind. I've kind of been working on and off for a while now, probably almost a decade.
Oh yeah, that is kind of. I never went that far, but I've definitely had starts and stops, and then the problem with working so long is you just kind of get. And that gets to the problem with doing any really long-term project is that you get better at doing the project. So, where doing, for instance, like a long-form like webcomic or something, I think it's easy to avoid the impulse to go back and redraw everything. But it could feel harder to be like, well, I should redo this code.
Yeah, especially when you're still having to deal with that code.
Right, exactly. It's like the code is not out of mind. It's in the bones of the game you're working on, so you have to constantly rewrite it over and over again. Mm-hmm. Until that's why I like the idea of sketching more often. Why I've been attempting to do what I'm calling sketching more often, because I just had to rewrite like some of my the code I use for collisions, basically. but just so I could make it so that I could walk in front of and behind objects, and like realistically bump up against them. But that was also within the course of like a overall 6-hour project rather than in the middle of a 6-year project.
Yeah, collision code is always the most terrifying to rewrite.
Yes, right. Because if it doesn't work, it breaks everything. And I'm a big fan of duplicate, and let's see what I can break and what I cannot break, and hope I get something to work without, especially knowing what I know about Game Maker. And it's kind of, unless you have like good like collision code, say collision at very high speeds can be kind of wonky.
Yeah, Momentous just does, it moves you forward 1 pixel at a time until you hit something.
Perfect. And that
it works.
Yeah, no, that's how it's the beauty when that works. I got real fancy where it incorporates signs, sign being the mathematical sign rather, not the concept of a street sign. But same idea. And then, because I've had problems where it's like, oh, whoops, before I had that, I was like clipping into things or setting up bad rotations if like, I call them models, but their sprites did not line up properly,
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that is what would you one kind of final wrapping it up? Wow, wrapping it up! My God, so soon. Sort of question is, what is like? I meant that's when I was talking about the group thing. Is what is your background, I guess, or like what would you say is like when you're forming a group, you're like, don't worry, I'll do this part of the game.
Yeah, I think in the past I've just done usually a combination of programming and design. That's what I studied. But I do enjoy doing some music. I wouldn't say I'm good at it, but I enjoy it.
Right. No, I as someone who just made a small loop, I'm like, I enjoyed it for about 3 minutes, and then 4 minutes I was like, I should make a script that mutes all audio so that I can do this, so that I can put out games where I make music, but also people have the option to jam that M key very quickly and turn it all off. But yeah. That's neat. Magic Pillow, if you believe it, like I alluded to it earlier, but we're already actually almost, we're getting close to an hour. We're hitting like 50 minutes if it comes so quickly. Like I said in the pre-show, where's the time come from? Where does it go? But glad to have you on the show.
Thanks. Yeah, I've enjoyed being here.
Glad to have you in the zine. I always do what I can to try and put it all together. Get everyone in a big group, a big old pile to the best of my ability, beyond just the singular issue. As you know, because as your issue is getting close to being a year old, But anyway, I will see everyone else at the other half of 1 minute. Not other half. Doesn't make sense. The other side, that is. Hello and welcome back to Indiepocalypse Radio. That was Grandma's Boyfriend with Donkey 2x4, as they say right there in the track, but you didn't get to hear it if you're listening to this post-mortem, which is post the mortem of the stream, I suppose, not the show itself. But we are back with our guests Julian Ploton and Magic Pillow. Hello, both of you. Welcome back to the show.
Hello.
Julian, it's been a while. Magic, it's been roughly 1 minute and 4 seconds. But manga thrillers each. But I'm gonna see the important thing. We're doing the question check-in. Nothing. So this is what I do as I close it. And now, if you have a question, you gotta put it in. I don't know, in the chat. But anyway, we are here with the two guests. We chatted about things. We had some. Well, we had some left tonight. This part where I asked the two of you. Did you have any other questions? Any questions for each other? Any questions for me? Any questions for the ether, perhaps?
Not that I can think of now.
No, me neither.
Well, perfect. Well, in that case, I will actually, since we've reached an hour, give or take, and I've kind of I've been getting more accustomed to these hour-long shows with my singular guest shows. I am going to... Oh, it's a little face. I never noticed that for some reason. Or I never saw it the way I saw it. But... Sorry, I'm looking at my... I have to change my theater mode. I was looking at my little wiggly GIF. And I saw the face in a way that I hadn't seen it before. But enough of that little face there. We are... I'm just going to... I'm gonna wrap it up, as it were. Let everyone return to their business. So without further ado, I'm going to now we get to the part of everyone's favorite part of the end of every single podcast, is where the guests, I guess, a podcast with guests, which are, I guess, primarily such a podcast I prefer to listen to. I like to listen to a variety of different voices. So I like guest shows. But it's where the guests tell you where you can find their stuff, so that you can be like, I listened to this show. I enjoy the sound of those people. I enjoy the sound of their stuff. Where can I find it? I'm so desperate to find it again later. And so I'm going to start with Magic Pillow. Where can people find your stuff if they're looking for it?
I think most of it's on magicpillow.itch.io.
Oh, perfect. Got to keeping the... And I screwed myself over. I closed the thing, but I always forget that I do need to keep that tab open because I need to paste people's links into the chat. Perfect. Consistent branding. You love to see it. Yeah, check it out. You've got 3 or 4 games there. Game Maker Toolkit and Momentous Monumentum. I always encourage people to buy the games outside of Indiepocalypse. Even if you bought them within Indiepocalypse. It never hurts to double dip. I'm the kind of guy who streams stuff and then also buys things after the fact. Consider it to be the physical copy version of an Indiepocalypse game. They're kind of like that standalone release. And there may even be a decades-long project within the next 2 to 3 decades, perhaps. You have an anticipated release window, as they call them. Julian, where would you find your stuff if people are so? If you've got it, if they want to play TLE HD, ADHD Dinosaur in browser, or see a second game, should you have a second game out there too at some point?
My stuff is strictly singular.
Yes.
And it is on chickentuna.itch.io.
Perfect.
Maybe I will release something.
A second game.
Yeah, maybe.
You never know.
I make stupid side projects, but nothing that I show to the general public.
Yeah. I'm trying to normalize showing stupid side projects to the general public in the same way an artist would post their sketches online.
Yeah, maybe.
They kind of be
Well,
like, hey.
if I'm going to display it anywhere, it'll be on chickenchina.itch.io.
So there you go. Perfect. That's where you can find it. And then I will say where you can find my stuff is obviously you just buy it at indiepocalypse.com. Issues 21 and 23 will support the people here on this very show. Sometimes that support, it trickles in slowly, but if you buy one here and there, it ups that royalty time to goes from like the real dream is that people get their royalty payouts before the next pledge drive, because that's usually the benefit of the pledge drive. It helps get everyone a little royalty kickback. But if you buy just a little copies you don't own during the year, then sometimes people get a little $5 treats in their mailbox one day, and they'd be like, "Oh, I can buy a candy bar with this." What does one buy with $5? Less payment fees. No, I think I eat up most of the payment fees. But anyway, my God, 100 solo games. Oh, played. Never mind. I thought that was someone saying they made 100 solo games. But yeah, indiepocalypse.com. Buy it. indiepocalypse.com/Patreon. indiepocalypse.com/submit. I get into the season occasionally of being like, hey, people should submit their games to this thing. I don't do it all the time. I do it occasionally because I don't know. I kind of forget about it. Enough comes so naturally. But do it. I'd recommend it. It's a good thing. If you make games, if you make game adjacent things that feel like games, if you make things that go, this isn't a game. If you make art and your art happens to be within the interactive medium that we loosely associate with video games, submit it. I'm looking for it. That's it. I'm closing out the show. Thank you both for being here. I'm loading up my foobar, firing it up, getting ready to transition. Goodbye.
Bye.
See ya.